So I want to talk about backgrounds now. I've got my two text layers. I will collapse them because I'm not going to worry about the effects just now, because I need to have a background in order to know whether the effects are going to make this very legible or not. So I've got the gradient tool selected here, and you can see that there is a classic gradient and a regular gradient that they have now. So the new gradient tools are pretty powerful. You'll have this black and white by default, and just click and drag somewhere on your screen and you'll have it going from one color to another, in this case black to white. Now this line here can be adjusted afterwards, and so you can move it around and decide exactly how you want the gradient to go. This is the midpoint, and so changing where the middle is another tool that's pretty handy. But you may have noticed that the My Favorite Things disappeared. That's because of the order of the layers here. So if I just take this layer and drag it underneath, now I've got a background for my text. Now this gradient isn't all that interesting, but I can go and look at some of the other colors. It doesn't matter too much like what colors you start with, because you can change them, and you can double click on these color stops and customize it to your own. So you can see now that I've got a light greenish bluish color, which makes these words stand out pretty good. Notice how the shadow is now a lot darker. You don't really notice it when it's on the transparent checkerboard, but once you have a background there, you often need to go back and lighten that up. You don't want it to look like it's doubling up the letters. That makes it harder to read. Now, what we kind of like to do sometimes is a difference mode technique that allows us to create some cool swirly backgrounds. Right now what we've got is the gradient and then a mask on top of that gradient. So this method right here, if we throw this mask away, it'll look more like my older tutorials where you just have this gradient fill on here. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to change my gradient tool to do a new layer. I'm just going to hide that one away right now. And instead of the newer gradient, I'm going to the classic gradient. Still using those colors. And if I've got this set to normal, then every time I draw this, it'll just replace the pixels with the new one. But I can't adjust it afterwards. So this is where it gets fun, because you can change this to another mode, and the one that's the most dramatic is the difference mode. And now I like to just draw random lines on here, and it keeps flipping back and forth as it's dividing the numerical values for the colors. And with just a few swipes, maybe even change up to a different color here and do another swipe. And you now have something that's totally unique. Nobody's ever seen this particular combination of swirls and colors before. So you can make something that is really nice, but at the same time can make your text really hard to read. So you can see that I've got, with the classic gradient, I've just got this layer. I like to name these like BG1 and BG2 for background, because you can make several of these and then swap them out. Try them with your different category titles and your intro title and see what colors are going to go best. As you can see now, we are definitely going to need to do some things to make this more legible. So that'll be in the next tutorial.